Markham at the Path to Purchase Institute, and welcome to Industry Outlook, a video-based program where we interview various industry leaders and practitioners from across the world of shopper commerce to learn about new trends and new solutions to the challenges we're facing. I'm here today with the founders of Pear Commerce, Alex Weiler and Eric Martel, to learn more about their innovative solutions and approach to e-commerce. So to kick us off, can you share some background info on how you got into the industry and how Pear Commerce was created?
Of course. Well, thank you for having us today. Pear Commerce came about because Alex and I recognized some shortcomings in the current digital marketing offerings that exist for CPG companies. Alex and my background is in e-commerce. We started a company back when we were in college that does hundreds of millions of dollars in e-commerce sales. And we built that company on reliable, modern digital marketing technologies, like running ads on the internet, using those ads to drive purchases, capturing information about the people who actually purchased the items, and remarket it back to them, and use that information to, in fact, advertise to more people more effectively and drive more purchases with our own company. What we recognized at some point is that CPG companies lack that closed loop of driving traffic to their e-commerce and then being able to measure the impact and use that to continue to drive a positive feedback loop. Namely, when a CPG company runs a digital advertisement, their options are either to drive it to their own informational website that doesn't have the ability to actually power an online transaction, or to a retailer where that information is oftentimes lost. Did the purchase actually occur? Who was the person who was actually buying? And how could a CPG company use that information to have a more effective digital marketing approach? That black box of what happens when somebody clicked on an ad and ended up on a retailer website and did not actually purchase or did purchase is what we set out to solve, basically providing the same standard of digital marketing technology that we were used to from our time at our previous e-commerce company.
All right, next question. So what is the most unique thing about Pear Commerce's offerings? And what does this platform bring to the table that really stands out as a differentiator?
Sure, I'll take this one. So what Pear Commerce aims to do is bring all of the benefits of direct-to-consumer marketing to wholesale brands, to CPGs who sell through retailers. And there are two major differentiators for how we're able to actually do this. The first is that we support ads running, taking consumers to any retailer that they may want to shop at. That's full retail coverage in the continental United States. So wherever you may want to run a national ad, a consumer is going to be able to actually shop from that ad. That's something that sets us apart. The other thing, and arguably the more important thing, is that we're also able to collect transaction level data from the consumers as they flow from ads to retailers when they actually make purchases. This data is entirely new to the industry because it's in real time. And what it means to be in real time is that if you think of an ad campaign as a top of a funnel and a bottom of a funnel, you see the ad at the top and the purchase at the retailer on the bottom. Because we're able to connect those two, we're able to optimize the advertisements to perform better. And we're able to identify which consumers are doing well, which consumers aren't doing so well, which ad creative is doing well, and basically any sort of A/B test you may want to run with your marketing, you're able to run. And in addition, you're able to take the consumers that are performing well and create lookalike audiences and repeat the whole process, similar to what Eric mentioned in the introduction. So in summary, full retail coverage and real transaction data are the two things that differentiate us most.
Very good, very good. So how would you describe the new era of collaboration between brands and retailers?
Sure. Well, candidly, there's a lot of existential threats to traditional brands and to traditional retailers right now. It goes without saying that e-commerce is sort of turning the world of retail upside down. You see a lot of consolidation in the space. You see a lot of traditional retailers who candidly are only just starting to lean into their e-commerce strategy and recognize that there's a little bit of catch up to play. Likewise, an existential threat to both CPG companies and to retailers is the advent of direct-to-consumer companies, companies that both produce their goods, sell them online directly on their own website, and then send them directly to the consumer. Obviously, that's going to be a direct competitor to a traditional CPG product. It's also, of course, a direct competitor to retailers because that's a purchase that isn't taking place at your local retailer. What we think is that whereas CPG companies and retailers have traditionally had something of a necessary but occasionally fraught relationship, the best way to stave off the impending consolidation that exists in the retail industry and all the shifts that are going on with e-commerce that is certainly hurting some of the more traditional brick and mortar retailers, and the way that both of them can stave off the impending challenge of direct-to-consumer products is to collaborate more closely together. Because ultimately, what's a retailer good at? It's good at interfacing directly with the shopper and selling a product. What's a brand really good at? Well, they're good at making high-quality products. What you get when you have closer collaboration between the two of them is a better experience for shoppers, which is ultimately going to keep shoppers shopping at that retailer and purchasing those products. And those are the two things necessary for prolonged prosperity on both sides of the table. So that's the world vision that we're buying into.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, what is your advice for CPG brands trying to compete with direct to consumer? And in what ways is a traditional CPG brand act more nimbly and really harness that power of direct to consumer marketing?
Sure, I'll take this one. So the benefit of a traditional CPG brand over a direct-to-consumer brand is its distribution in retailers. Retailers are some of the highest foot trafficked establishments in brick and mortar world, but they're also some of the highest trafficked websites. So if you don't have a name ID, a lot of name recognition for your brand, if you're an emerging brand, or if you do a lot of business through retailers, there are so many consumers that you could be persuading to switch to your product or to buy more or to upsell, to cross-sell to additional products. You have a lot of leverage with the consumer base if you're still in retailers. This is why you tend to see direct-to-consumer companies eventually make their way into retail after establishing themselves in direct-to-consumer. Now, the benefit of Pear is that you don't need to make sacrifices, as many sacrifices, in your marketing strategy. Let's say you're a D2C brand trying to go into retail. With Pear Commerce, you're able to get the same benefits of optimizing your ads, learning about your audience, running A/B tests, doing a multi-channel marketing assortment without losing data, losing the valuable data that you've used to run your company thus far. Now, on the other side, the traditional CPGs now have access to that same toolkit that the direct-to-consumer companies have been using to grow, and they don't have to sacrifice their retailer distribution. We see that 60% of consumers are choosing a local favorite retailer when given the option among several in our store picker, and the traditional brands digitally can benefit from that affinity that already exists from a consumer and a retailer without sacrificing anything, and they can take that digital strategy that direct-to-consumer has been using and apply it to their existing marketing.
Absolutely. Now, in what ways has e-commerce really affected the way that brands have to evolve?
Sure. Well, I think that e-commerce in some ways has actually disadvantaged brands relative to everybody else who's advertising on the internet. Because once upon a time, and that time wasn't so long ago, you would run a television commercial and anybody would see that commercial. I mean, maybe you were of a demographic that tended to watch a certain TV show, and the advertiser can make some general assumptions around, hey, this is the demographic who saw my television ad. But when it comes to billboards on the roadside or anything that's really non-digital, at best, it's a guess, and at worst, it's just kind of like a spray and pray and hope that people notice the information that you're sharing in your ad. In digital, you all of a sudden have this big advantage to be very choosy about who you want to see your ad. And you can use that information if you're actually the one selling your product as well to determine, hey, this demographic tends to really like buying my product. This demographic is not performing very well with the product. But the problem that brands face and the challenges of e-commerce is that if they're only selling through retailers and they're not getting that information about who's actually buying and the demographics of the people purchasing from the retailers, then all of a sudden they've become tremendously disadvantaged to anybody else who's advertising on the internet and who understands the actual impact of their advertisements. Now, I'll give a little bit of a plug for us. Our goal here is to demystify the idea of who's actually purchasing your product through retail for brands in order to help them kind of play catch up on this recent setback relative to anybody else who's running ads online. But as far as how e-commerce has changed the industry, I would argue that e-commerce has actually made it more difficult for traditional CPG companies to run effective advertising compared to their peers, compared to back 20 years ago when we were all sort of constrained by print media, by television media, and by billboards.
Absolutely. The world has changed quite a bit in a very short period of time, for sure.
We're all playing catch up.
Absolutely. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I would really like again to thank the founders of Pear Commerce, Alex Weiler and Eric Martel, and appreciate the time that they spent with us today. And we look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Lloyd.
it.